And then the guy shows up with like a mastiff, like this like service dog. And I'm like, at which point does Delta say enough? You're not getting a bear on. That thing, that dog was so big. And he
Wait,
literally...
so somebody was trying to get the dog into the cabin?
No, they did get the dog.
They did.
And I
They
was
did get
5D and then 5A, hence my story, because they were next to me. Anyway, the dog was fine. It was a cute dog. So next thing is like giraffe coming in.
Giraffe coming onto the flight. That's crazy. Welcome to Hitmakers, How Brands Influence Culture, where every other week, Anna and I explore cultural influence and how brands create it. I'm Rei and I. I'm a creative entrepreneur and also a founding partner of an innovation firm called I & Co based in New York City.
And I'm Anna Angelic, and I'm a brand executive and author. My new book, Hitmakers, How Brands Influence Culture, is out at Kaze Magazines in New York. Apparently, Ali told me, bring 20 more copies because it sold out completely. And on Amazon, every 2 weeks, Rei and I talk about who are the brands that make hits and who are those they don't and why, what influences the difference between the two. And we have our lovely producer, Vanya Arsenov, who is also from Serbia, but from a part where people are much, much nicer.
All right, maybe we can talk. We can create an episode about that. I would love to get some cultural education of Serbia.
So if you like our conversations, we covered everything from product-led branding to trends and predictions to what makes a great cultural product. You can leave us a review and 5 stars, because reviews come only as 5 stars,
yes,
on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. Thank you for listening.
As well as YouTube.
And YouTube. Thank you, Rei.
All right. So, by the way, your book, I have not gotten a copy yet.
Well, now it's sold out.
What a bad partner. What a bad podcast partner I am.
I know.
Yeah.
No, don't worry. I'll give you a copy and I'll sign it.
Yes, please do. Please do.
So it's special.
Yeah. So, you had your opening book launch in Paris.
Yes.
And you have a couple of more events coming up.
Yes, I have a New York one, TBD the date.
Okay.
London they told me, please stop promoting it. We are 100 people over the limit. So I can't say. It's hosted by List on January 24th.
Okay.
So those who RSVP, they did. Others...
Too bad.
Come to New York.
Yes.
And then Melbourne and Sydney, actually, in May.
Oh, no way. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it's global, baby.
Global, baby. That's right. All right. Well, maybe I can help you promote it in Japan.
Oh, that would be lovely. I would love that. Thank you so much. Maybe you are there at the beginning or end of May. So,
I could be.
Let's talk.
Yeah.
I can stop by when I'm there.
That's right. All right. So we are talking about creative strategy. So this is a topic that you and I talked about in the past, not on the show, but just in general. Hey, this is a topic that we should definitely cover. You did write your analysis sometime last year, I think, about creative strategy and why brands need creative strategy. So do you want to give your quick primer on what you mean by creative strategy and a little premise behind this topic?
Yes, and I'll be very short because I want us to get into it. So there are 2 pillars. One is that creativity beats efficiency. And that means that the current business models across cultural industries, from agencies to retail to hospitality to entertainment, are made to more to kind of create as much cultural output as possible. If you go on Netflix, the number of titles that have girl named is like girl with a horse girl, tall girl, school girl, girl in a bag, girl, unhinged, girl, it's kind of like drive for efficiency leads to unremarkable results. So basically what I'm saying is not creativity is nice to have. Creativity is a must have, but not in a sense, which is my second pillar, of it being an output. It's a process, which means that everyone in organization needs to be creative. And no, that doesn't mean that your financial controller needs to be creative, like God forbid, but that there is a creative approach to problem solving. And I'll give you an examples now that I established this framework. Creativity beats efficiency, because companies that are succeeding today, like I know in luxury fashion, Hermes, Prada, they put creative out there. Brands that are chasing quick releases and a scale of products and market saturation are not doing so well at this time. And brands that redefine not, oh, what kind of creative campaign I'm going to build, but no. Why is this a problem and how can I creatively approach it? Reviving a brand, growing the market, reaching a new audience segment, adding a new channel, and so on.
Yeah. And I think on that point, creativity, I mean, one of the obvious but important points is that it's not a department or it's not a specific job title. It shouldn't be technically, but it's more of a mindset or even the culture of the organization that fosters creativity.
Absolutely. And like, rather than us talking, I'll give you a specific example. When I was at Banana in 2021, we did a vintage shop. And look, it's 25. A lot of brands have done a vintage shop since then. But that time, a brand at that scale, it was just not something that you can pull off.
Yeah.
But we did it. And you know why we did it? Because it's not like idea is a great idea. Everyone has great ideas. Ideas are everywhere. But it's actually creativity in problem solving of supply, production, and merchandising. Because SVP of production, Paige, who is now at Worry, and Kurt, if I remember correctly, on her team, they were able to figure out how are we going to label those vintage products that we scouted to thrilling and put it in the warehouses together with everything else. And then merchants figured out how are we going to put it in the system? What SKUs are we going to give? And that actually enabled the execution in the real world. The visual merchandising team did, the retail experience team did, the e-commerce experience team, and e-commerce design. But it was really solving the problem of where does it sit in a warehouse.
Yeah. Creativity, the word creativity or the word creative as an adjective is what I call a suitcase word. Meaning that...
Okay, everyone, you need to read Rei's post about the future of creativity. The one you wrote 6 months ago.
Which one?
I don't know. You said the suitcase word and then I got attacked for it.
You got attacked for it?
Because it was on my sociology business.
Oh, that's right. Yes. That one was a bit more specific to not just creativity, but design.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then because you published it for me, and then somebody responded to you.
And I was like, how do you deal with it?
Yes. And then you were like, oh, you know what? The author of this article is not me. By the way,
no, I wanted to give you the respect.
No. I appreciate that. By the way, I did end up reaching out to the individual, and I actually invited to have a conversation on Zoom, and I had a chat with him.
Was it good?
It was totally fine. It's funny. I mean, I know this is a tangent, but that kind of discussion is so much better. Like if you have a direct conversation as opposed to just purely writing.
Oh my God, always.
Yeah, it can get out of control. But yeah, it ended up being a very good conversation.
I know, but I'm really glad you say that. And I think we should invite more people to have like a call or something. Because you know what I do now? And you can call me an asshole. But I'm like, when I don't want to deal on LinkedIn, people offer their opinions and I'm like, I can't really educate you here, you know?
Yeah.
And if I educate you, you're going to reply and so on. So, okay, see above, not from the part of Serbia when Vanya is from, I just delete it. I'm like, I can't deal with it.
Yeah.
If you want to email me directly, absolutely. But like, I'm not engaged.
Right. So
you're a good man, Ray. You're a good man.
I try to be patient. Yeah. One thing that I was going to mention, because creativity is a pretty broad term and there is never a perfect definition, right? Having said that, I had a conversation with somebody named Joel Podney, who used to be the head of Apple University when Steve Jobs was still around.
Mm-hmm.
So he used to be a professor at the Yale School of Business Management.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a business professor. And he was there for 20 years or 17 years, 20 years or so. He was a lifelong academic. And then more than 15 years ago, when Steve Jobs was still alive,
Mm-hmm.
Steve Jobs personally recruited this individual, Joel, and asked him to be the dean of Apple University, which is an in-house training curriculum to maintain the quality of Apple as an organization. So, so I asked him, how do you, similar conversation, creativity is such a blah, blah, blah. How do you define creativity?
Mm-hmm.
And the definition that he gave is the one that it's the simplest and the easiest to understand. And the way he describes creativity is two things. One is original thought, and two is skillful action or skillful execution.
Mm-hmm.
So having original ideas, and then the ability to execute it in a skillful, high quality kind of way, right? So as long as an organization has the ability to come up with ideas and then execute it, it has the potential to become a creative organization. And I think a lot of companies, either they're not able to do either, or they might be able to come up with an idea, but then, is never able to execute.
Well, then let's go back to pillar number one, which is efficiency. Honestly, all those organizations have ideas. They have wonderful people.
Yes.
But they're organized for efficiency. And now that 2025, that business model is stretched to its limits. You can't have 17 fashion shows. You can Fast and Furious 35. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But as you are seeing, that scale is no longer the goal. People are now like, wait, but there are no anymore macro trends. Everything is niche trends. And when you have that, then you sort of specialize in say cosmetic recommendations or outdoor recommendations or products here, products there. But it's not anymore. I think that those business models that we've seen, that the retail company has to be a $2 billion company.
Yeah.
And they're all struggling to keep that, is telling you that model is indeed, the world is just too fast and too unpredictable. It sort of works when you have those factories and you're turning and stuff doesn't change for years. Fashions don't change, what people eat, where they go, you have Britney Spears Pepsi commercial, which is mass, everyone knows. But what do you do when your mass is actually aggregation of those niches? You can't just do one size fits all, which is efficiency is about.
Yeah.
Well, I would say it's this organizational setup.
Organizational setup, but also mindset or culture too, no?
It's incentives. Again, you are having been in those giant retail organizations.
Yeah.
I used to think like that, long time ago, but now they're wonderful people. They're just not incentivized to do things differently. Because they're measured by old measure, and their boss does and then even when someone new comes in and is their chief brand officer, their CEO, they're gonna execute resistance. Incentivize creative thinking and say, don't worry, guys, you don't need to update your website every day with new products, blah, blah. Just give me a creative, and then the business results are going to go down and people are going to come up with amazing things,
Yeah.
But who is incentivized for that? And it's going to be no bonus for you.
But when you say incentivize, do you mean literally bonus or financial incentives, or do you mean other types of incentives as well?
All sorts of incentives. That means if you want to do things in a certain way,
Yeah.
And you're not at the top of organization, so you have to mobilize the entire organization. And even when you're on top of organization, I was very lucky that I was on the top of brand marketing creative organizations. So it was the frameworks we introduced and how we worked with merchandising and retail channels. But even then, in one of my jobs, retail channels have no idea what we were talking about. They're so backwards that it was kind of oh, don't worry about it. Seriously, just do your thing. Not Banana. Banana were amazing. They are so amazing that I unbelievably business savvy and operationally savvy.
Yeah. But in a case like in retail or fashion, where there are a lot of operational, transactional, or even functional roles that may not be traditionally creative, right? And then when you go into those organizations as a senior executive and to instill that kind of mindset into, say, roles of people in roles that may not be typically creative, what is specific, other than incentive, what is specific activities, what are specific processes that you deployed in order to elevate the mindset?
Well, process is the king, honestly. First of all, having one vision, one clear vision where this organization is going on the level of CEO, CFO, chief revenue officer, chief growth officer, chief marketing officer, chief product officer, so on. So everyone knows where the company is going. And then CFO can actually provide funds to where the company is going and not find itself with the pants down when you're kind of like, oh, maybe the results are not there. And results are always not going to be there on a short term because revenue is always lagging indicator of brand. And it's actually possible to kind of reverse engineer cultural influences, see, hey, we did this, this, and this, and that led to X amount of growth.
Yeah.
So in that sense, that first of all, a clear vision, and then second of all, the process where everyone is included in decision making. So that's why I believe that rather than having a strategy, you need to have a creative production department. Like Hollywood, when people from different people from different specializations bring in. Even if they're not external, if they're internal, that producer merchandising needs to sit with marketing, needs to sit with creative, needs to sit with product design and channels, and they need to make decisions together. If you're siloed, you're going to look to be as efficient as possible in your silo at detriment of you're competing with each other.
Yeah. So on that note, one case study that I thought about that I would share was ASICS. So we worked with ASICS for just, pure disclaimer and in transparency, but we've worked since I want to say 2018 or so when their business was kind of going downhill. And 2021 is when they were able to turn it around. And then by 2023, 2024, their revenue was the highest in its corporate history. And what enabled that kind of turnaround? One was cross-functional way of working. And then the other one was, and this is sort of apt to the theme of this, not just this episode, but the podcast itself, which is having a hit product. So, it took them for about a year to 2 years or so to really course correct the decline in sales and the decline in sort of mindset of the people internally. The CEO at the time, whom we worked with, Mr. Hirota, created a special project where it was just, to develop one product, but he brought 7 or 8 different functions under one umbrella and then created this SWAT team, marketing, product development, legal, and all those, production and all those. And then over the course of about a year and a half or so, they developed a product specifically for a category for runners. And then that became a hit product. So they had a process blueprint and template and a team structure template that then they were able to prove as a proof of concept so that they can then repeat that to make the overall culture of or overall organization, quote unquote, more creative. Yeah. But what it came down to was the team structure, the process, and then a hit product. Those 3 things were the ingredient of creative strategy.
Yeah, I would argue that I wouldn't yes, great. And that's ASICS, so one of the legendary brands in the world. I don't think that every brand needs to have a hit product, but I think the chances of coming up or making a product a hit when it comes to that are higher if the process is in place. You say they see, hey, this is really spiking up. Let's put more media against it. Let's put more, I need more money against it. I need to do a little mini campaign. Let's check, just having that nimbleness and reactivity.
Yeah, yeah,
Because predicting hits is a mood business, as you and I talked several
yeah, yeah.
episodes. But what you can do is kind of like, how do you reverse engineer cultural influence to respond very quickly when something does catch on?
Yeah, yeah. Who do you think are outside of, say, fashion? Yeah. Outside of fashion, who do you think are creative organizations? You look
I
at
don't
a
think that
company.
Gap is a creative organization now. I think that it was for a minute when Sandra was there, my boss at Banana, and when I was there and we were doing things differently. That was insane sprint of 9 months to revive that brand. But I don't think that sort of behavior has continued.
But what
But
I'm
I don't
asking
want to
is,
say that in a negative way. It's just for a company that scale with 4 brands, there are
yeah,
different moments in time.
yeah. But what about like outside of fashion? Do you?
Absolutely. I think outside of fashion, I think very creative. I don't even think that Apple is a creative organization anymore. I don't think they're a creative
Yeah.
organization anymore, because if you define creative organization, the one that constantly comes up with new things, or at least manage to capture the zeitgeist and keeps growing and kind of goes through, then I think the list is very short. Like, I'm mostly well versed, but you can probably see some watch brands, you can probably see some automotive brands, probably Tesla, is to an extent because they created a completely new market.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then they kept innovating in terms of design, which is basically one of the very few ways that you can innovate electric vehicles. So I would say Tesla probably.
Yeah.
Then I would also say, and I don't think we give enough credit to TikTok anymore. And how basically they're always on the toes. They're making trends, but they're themselves a
Yeah.
trend. And then I would say those small CPG brands. That is like, okay, so this is not a CPG brand. This is Perfectly Imperfect, which is this peer-to-peer recommendation platform from, anti-algorithm. I didn't know about them, where people recommend to each other.
Oh,
So that's
perfectly
kind of
imperfect. Yeah, yeah.
innovation of socializing of the recommendation, because if you say, hey, if everything now is, they literally look like Web 1.0, but that's the point. So I would say some of those smaller brands, and then I would always give brands that are actually walking the walk in terms of sustainability. There is this Danish brand called Soulland, and they have all like innovative materials. But those are small brands, you see. I don't see any gigantic creativity side of TikTok. And then, of course, what is happening in terms of apps in China, shopping apps in China platforms. What about you? What do you think?
I would say the first one that comes to my mind, and not in any specific order, but Nintendo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you going
And
to offer disclosure here or no?
I'm sorry?
Are they your client or no?
No, they're not. They're not.
No.
Good point. No, I'm not, just highlighting my
If you're
clients.
listening.
No. But it's one of those companies that they're not always successful, but they've been around for over 100 years now.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And like the way they started as a company, they used to create these deck of cards, like super analog decks of cards. That was the business, 100 years ago.
Love it.
And then they just kind of kept evolving and evolving, and it became a game console company in the 80s. And every, I would say 10 to 15 years, they have been able to produce a massive hit. So like in the 80s and 90s, when I was growing up in Japan, they had Nintendo, these, in Japan, it was called family computers. Here it was called Nintendo. And it became like the first major computer game at home. And then like Wii was one of the first gesture gaming consoles.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
Yeah. And then I would say like around 2017, 18, they introduced Nintendo Switch. Yeah. And then during COVID, this game called Animal Crossing became a global.
Animal Crossing. Yeah.
Global phenomenon. Yeah.
Did you play Animal Crossing?
My daughter did, actually.
Yeah, I never got into it, but I guess.
Yeah, no, but I mean, people who were into it, especially during COVID, I mean, they were
That
playing,
sounds sad. I mean, not the daughter, obviously, but I know who you mean. Like, it's
yeah.
nice for
No,
her.
but they were, I mean, people were really into it, And the thing
Yeah.
is, I mean, I played it while I watched my daughter play it, and like, I didn't really find it that, because like, you don't really do anything, you know?
But this right, but that's I know. But then you have Roblox that is like built upon that, like as a multiplayer and so on. So I
Yeah.
love that. And you know what that reminded me of Lego, and
Yeah.
especially adult fans of Lego.
Mm.
AFOL, that's a special category, and they design and submit
Oh,
to Lego their own ideas and so on. And you know why that's relevant? And thank you for bringing up Nintendo,
yeah.
because in China, Japan, in Asia, even in Europe, fewer kids.
Mm.
And so the toy companies are reorienting to like kid adults.
Mm.
So they're creating merch, they're creating those like toys for actually teenagers and above.
Mm.
But that's innovation, kind of realizing that, oh, wait a second, maybe we're not for 5-year-olds, but maybe we are for 15 or 25-year-olds.
Mm.
Still want that because of, I don't know, Squid Game or Nintendo or whatnot. They kind of like are used to, or Roblox at the end of the day, they're used to living in this imaginary world.
Yeah. So company like Nintendo, I find them quite interesting because they've been able to sustain their creativity over so many years. It's not just in the last 10 or 20 years.
Mhm.
It's for the past 100 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not just about an individual who's so creative that he or she becomes the leader, and then, like what Steve Jobs was to
Yeah.
Apple, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then to an earlier point that you made, that is Apple really creative? It's kind of debatable. And is it because of the leadership? And no offense to, the leadership at
No, I
Apple,
mean,
because
they're
they,
like the
yeah,
most valuable brand in the world.
exactly,
And
exactly.
millions, so it's kind of God bless.
Yeah, they've been
Yeah,
able to increase
we
the
can talk
value of the
about
company.
it.
Yeah, they've been able
They're doing
to
something
increase the
right.
value of it.
So yeah, I do think that is, for example, innovation. I think what IKEA has done was innovative, and I think to this day is, because they have like multiple sort of streams. They have like sustainability, they have collaborations, and their sort of content is very responsive. So I think they're keeping themselves on their toes. And I think it's important also to distinguish between corporate cultures and wider cultures they exist within. Scandinavians are more egalitarian, more nimble, more prepared for unexpected rather than Western. I mean, look at Europe. They're like, who, what? Like, where are we? What century is this?
Yeah, so that's one company that, when I think of creativity and company that's able to produce it on a regular basis, I think of somebody like Nintendo. On a much, much smaller scale, I find the restaurant industry quite interesting, because especially if you're a high-end restaurant, you have to be highly creative, and it's also a very competitive industry. Yeah. So like, for instance, like when I started my own company, the model that I looked at was some of those high-end restaurants, but specifically this restaurant called El Bulli in Spain. Yeah. And then this guy, Ferran Adria, who's a legendary gastronomy chef. And the model that he had at his restaurant was that the restaurant itself was open only for 6 months of the year. And then the following 6 months, he would close the restaurant. He wouldn't serve any customers, but he would develop new techniques and new culinary innovations. And then following 6 months, he would serve that. But then during that 6 months, when the restaurant was closed, he would document it, and then he would publish these beautiful monographs of the invention, the culinary inventions that he made. And then that became an IP itself, a piece of content, this beautiful monograph that he would publish.
Yeah,
So that
but they
also
don't
became,
exist anymore, do they?
no, that they changed, they stopped running the business. Because to be honest, I don't think he was financially that viable. So they turned it into an educational institution.
Okay, let's stay with. No, I understand what you like. I understand the model, but for me, it's creativity under realistic market conditions.
I think it was, to be fair, I think it was, I mean, they lasted for what, multiple decades.
They did last for a really long time and people would make pilgrimage but I think that with more restaurants having Michelin stars and even Noma is not around anymore. So it's not just,
Right.
Noma was able to succeed because Danish government supported for 3 years Regepi, and so it's this kind of recognition that you can't build it off the ground. And I do think that it's very worth having innovation when you sort of don't operate according to financial laws of the market. But I'm personally and professionally more interested in innovation that actually operates within.
That's fair.
Because there is so much innovation. Go to MIT, go to, it's kind of like we are going to space and so whatnot. And then what is the commercial potential? So I think connecting that. Commercial aspect is key.
But speaking of connecting that with a commercial success, or at least viability, and sort of stay in that culinary space, another company that I'll share the screen just so that for people who are watching this on YouTube can see it.
Got it. Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it is a Japanese brand called Toraya. And what they make is called wagashi, which means Japanese pastry. And it's been around since 16th century, right? 16th century. And then they produce these beautiful pastries. And by the way, I also like the simplicity of the Instagram account. They just show that and that only,
How many followers do they have?
They have like 130K. So it's not a humongous following.
But it's not small. So that you have
it's not small.
Aficionados and that's nice. Yeah. Do they ship globally? It looks beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's really nice how clean it is.
Yeah. It's been around for 400 years.
That's insane. And when did they open their Instagram account? In 18th century?
Exactly. 18th century. Exactly.
Yeah, that's a lovely example. And I think there's so many examples of craftsmanship.
Mm-hmm.
But craftsmanship is one thing and then the other is brand and a company, and you're lucky. One is lucky if they combine the two. Like the story of On Running. I love that story because they're like really running nerds for like, what if we put the pipe and try to like build a soul of that, and then they have a lab, but at the same time they're not just about product innovation. They're like about the emotion of running, the feeling of running, the spirit, So I think they're really doing the right thing. That they filed an IPO, so that they plan to stay around. They're doing the right thing in terms of brand building and product innovation, which I sort of like, and also like Hoka, that innovative materials. When you look Nike, which kind of slid back because of the lack of product innovation.
But speaking of On, just to go back to a little bit, I like what they're doing in terms of the product innovation, but also their like collaborations and marketing activities as of late.
Yes.
So they are collaborating with, I think, Loewe and coming up with a collection that's specific to that collaboration. So it's not just, creating good products for the sake of good products.
No, it's knowing your audience and then inspiring your audience in a cultural sense, not just in a product sense.
Yeah. But just to summarize for the audience, what's one thing that you want our audience to take away about this conversation?
Oh, that creativity is not the output, is the approach. And the creativity doesn't sit in a traditional creative department as design or marketing or creative. And that creativity beats efficiency. And it's now becoming increasingly the dominant mode of how companies organize themselves. Of course, we're not going to see the shift, but a lot of industries are hitting their sort of a limit, like media. Whatever is happening in media is happening in retail. And then you kind of look across mass industries and see who stays and who goes.
Yeah, cool. My summary or my key takeaway is actually going back to the beginning of this conversation, which is that I find the definition that I shared at the beginning. Creativity is a combination of original thought and skillful action. And any organization that's able to do both are the ones that win, and that can be creative. It's not, to your point, a department or an individual or a function, but those two things, being able to come up with original thought and execute skillfully, are the two ingredients, the basic ingredients of creativity.
Right. And I mean, I'm just going to say for those who are not from agencies that coming up with original thought is very high limit. So I think it's enough to have original way of addressing a problem or addressing an issue, like thinking outside the box. Oh, it hasn't been done before.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, because those people are like,
Fair enough.
their actions are going to impact the bottom line of a company.
Right. Alrighty. So hit list. So I can go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can't remember if I mentioned this. I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but my hit list right now is Squid Game.
Really?
Yeah.
No one likes Squid Game. I think, like, again,
Really?
are you sure? Oh my God, no one is watching it. Everyone is like, oh, it's repetition of the last one. And no, we watched it and we're like, okay, this is copy paste.
Really? Did you watch it?
Yeah, I did. Brian and I watched it when it came out, and it was like,
You
like
like
it's
it?
literally copy paste of the same.
It is similar. Really? Okay.
Then we talked with some Gen Z, like 25 or 27, 30. They were like, no, they didn't even bother. They didn't.
Maybe I'm biased because like it's true. It's very much similar to the first one, right? Yeah. But especially when it first
and the
came
writing
out.
is not as good. The narrative arc is not as believable. So I'm going to push back on that one. I mean, everyone needs to have their hit, but I'm just saying, like.
Really? Okay. So I'm only into like the second episode. So I haven't watched the whole thing.
Okay.
So maybe I will change
I already forgot about it. And I was like traumatized for like weeks after the first one. You couldn't have a dinner conversation or a meeting without like talking about it.
Yeah, the first one was very good.
It's just not in the zeitgeist.
Oh man. Okay, so that might ruin the viewing of the rest of the episodes for me then.
No, but it's like you can still enjoy it. It's not worse that I mean, it is a little worse than the original. It is.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not, you just don't believe it. You're just kind of like, yeah, why would he do that? You know what I mean? And when we were watching the first one, we were like, what is this? That was genre creativity, unbelievable.
The first, I agree. The first one was on so many levels. And what was great about the first, especially the first time they came out, was that the premise or the idea of a survival game is not new. Like it's been around.
Right.
And many writers and filmmakers try to create this type of survival game shows and movies. Yeah. But the way they did it was so different.
Critique of capitalism. It was such an obvious, brutal critique of capitalism. They're poor people who are thought to be trash and they're replaceable and they're fighting for amusement of the upper class. You know what I mean? So, and also it was 2020, like I think like always it's timing. 2021 after COVID, it just hit us. And that was the time Black Lives Matter early in the summer. And the Reach was just starting with sadness, succession, so on. So you know what I mean? It's always about...
Do you think they waited too long to create the second iteration?
Even if they didn't, it's not original enough. The premise is the same.
But then why is it that like so many Hollywood movies, especially in the past, 10 years, is like all sequels?
Because of literally what we just talked about, because they want to, like, efficiency is what drives them, not creativity. And I learned at Columbia Business School, there is no such thing that works in movie industry like a sequel. That's guaranteed money. So you have all those franchises and sequels. You have Fast and Furious 17. You have like all of that, because no one wants to be creative and take a risk. Everyone wants to be just like churn every year, fill out the theaters. You're going to know that you have an audience and call it. That's why.
And then the audience is probably educated that way as well. Like, hey, you know what? There was a first one that was a big hit, and so then there must be a next one.
Well, I mean, probably, but someone didn't read that article on Netflix that I sent you. I sent you over the week. Yeah.
No, I didn't. I don't think I did.
I don't think you did. I sent you on WhatsApp. I sent you an article on Netflix and the criticism of Netflix recommendation and what it has done for. It's published in N+1 for movie. They're basically a television company. Enemies were two things: Blockbuster and cable. And now they're like cable with live TV, and they're like Blockbuster in a sense that is ton of crap in a store, but nothing you want to watch.
Okay, you know what? I think I know the link, but I never actually read it.
It's okay. I know. That's why I said someone didn't read
No,
it.
I did not read it. So I'll do my homework.
For next time. Okay, so let's say for those who are still listening, that 1.5%, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you like what you're hearing, leave a review. I'm Anna Angelic, and this is
Rei and I, and see you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening.